Can you imagine a grand fighter jet delivery ceremony, where several brand new aircraft lined up neatly are missing their hearts, their engines? This seemingly absurd scene actually unfolded at the Indian Air Force's recent handover of 8 Tejas light combat aircraft. As cameras zoomed in, observers were stunned to discover that 6 of these aircraft not only had empty engine bays, but also lacked critical cockpit equipment like heads-up displays. This awkward, ceremonial delivery reflects the profound helplessness of India's aviation industry and the immense strategic pressure China's military modernization exerts on neighboring nations. The delivery ceremony, hosted by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited (HAL), was intended to showcase its Made in India achievements: 6 Tejas Mk-1A fighters and 2 Mk-1A two-seat trainers. Yet observant viewers quickly noticed that only the 2 aircraft closest to the camera had engines installed. The others displayed hollow exhaust nozzles, even revealing internal fuselage structures. This unusual sight rapidly spread across social media, sparking widespread discussion and humorous commentary. Indian netizens wryly quipped, "At least fighter jets without engines avoid the risk of being shot down, making pilots safer." The Tejas fighter program stands as one of the world's longest-running third-generation fighter development projects. Launched in 1983, its goal was to create a domestically produced light fighter to replace the MiG-21. However, due to weak technological foundations and an underdeveloped industrial base, the first prototype didn't take flight until 2001. Development was only completed in 2013, with the first delivery to the Indian Air Force occurring in 2015. Over 3 decades of development transformed the Tejas from a planned MiG-21 successor into a nostalgic relic. By the time the Tejas entered service, China's J-20 stealth fighter had already entered its final test flight phase. With an empty weight of 6.5 tons, the Tejas is significantly overweight for a light fighter, limiting its maximum G load to 5.5 g, far below the J-10C's 9G capability. Its combat radius of just 500 kilometers also lags considerably behind the J-10C's 1,240 kilometers. One core issue facing the Tejas is its low domestic content rate, with heavy reliance on imported critical components. In a sense, this fighter resembles an assembled, international brand product. Its tailless delta wing aerodynamic layout inherits from Francis Dassault. Its power plant uses the American General Electric F404 turbofan engine. Its flight control system comes from American Lockheed Martin. Ejection seats are procured from Martin Baker in the UK. The radar is an Israeli pulse Doppler system with a detection range of only 150 kilometers, and its weapons mix Russian cannons and missiles with Israeli Python 5 dogfight missiles. This multinational procurement model not only creates significant system integration challenges, but also makes maintenance exceptionally complex, resulting in a long-term combat readiness rate below 60%. Even more astonishing is the unit price of this light fighter jet, which reaches a staggering $70 million, nearly on par with the American F-35 stealth fighter and sufficient to purchase 2.5 JF-17 Thunder fighters, jointly developed by China and Pakistan. The most pressing issue currently facing the Tejas fighter is engine shortages. Deliveries of the F404 and 20 engines produced by General Electric have been severely delayed. This is partly due to U.S. sanctions on high-quality Russian titanium following the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which disrupted the supply chain for critical engine materials. Additionally, the U.S. Navy placed an additional order for 400 F404 engines in 2024 to equip its own Super Hornet fleet, prioritizing domestic demand and pushing back India's order by 18 months. India can only obtain 2 test engines per month on an emergency basis, which is utterly insufficient to meet mass production demands. This is the real reason why most aircraft lacked engines during the delivery ceremony. HAL may have been compelled to stage this show delivery in response to repeated urgings from Indian Air Force Chief of Staff Amartya Singh, and the pressure to demonstrate achievements following the defeat in the May 2025 Indo-Pakistani air battle. The Indian Air Force had hoped the Tejas fighter would counter China's J-10C, serving as the workhorse within its Air Force system. It envisioned the Tejas forming a 3-pronged approach, alongside future 5th-generation stealth fighters and Su-30MK heavy fighters to counter China's 3 Musketeers, combination of J-20, J-16, and J-10C. However, the May 2025 Indo-Pakistani air battle laid bare the IAF's vulnerabilities. During the conflict, Pakistan's J-10C fighters, armed with PL-15 missiles boasting a 200-kilometer range, locked onto Indian aircraft from long distances, forcing the Indian Rafale and Su-30 MKIs to retreat. The Tejas fighter's Israeli-made radar has a detection range of only 150 kilometers, nowhere near the J-10C's 240-kilometer capability. This places the Tejas in extreme danger during modern beyond visual range air combat. Meanwhile, the Chinese Air Force is undergoing an unprecedented modernization transformation. From its backward state in the early 2000s, relying primarily on second-generation fighters like the J-6 and J-7 with fewer than 200 modern third-generation aircraft, it is projected to have over 85% of its fleet comprised of third-generation or newer models by 2025. This will establish a new trinity centered on the J-10C, J-16, and J-20. Even more impressive is that China has deployed over 250 J-20 stealth fighters equipped with the WS-15 engine. They achieve 1.8 Mach supersonic cruise capability, with a combat radius extending to Guam. Furthermore, China has introduced the J-20S two-seat variant, capable of commanding Attack 11 drone swarms for penetration missions. In simulated combat scenarios, it has achieved a 95% success rate against the F-22. China's aviation industry advances extend beyond equipment performance to encompass production capacity and technological self-reliance. Shenyang Aircraft Corporation employs pulsed production lines for the J-35 stealth fighter, significantly boosting efficiency with annual output projected to exceed 100 units. Mass production of the WS-15 engine marks China's achievement of 100% domestic engine manufacturing, eliminating reliance on foreign technology. This maturity across the entire industrial ecosystem underpins the fundamental logic of China's speed. In contrast, India's defense industry still lacks independent innovation capabilities and struggles to break free from foreign technological dependence. The Indian Air Force and Navy's dissatisfaction with the Tejas fighter jet is no secret. The Indian Navy has repeatedly pointed out that the carrier-based variant suffers from issues such as excessive weight, low thrust-to-weight ratio, and insufficient weapons payload, rendering it incapable of meeting operational requirements. Despite last year's successful takeoff and landing of the Tejas carrier variant on the domestically built aircraft carrier Vikrant, which the Modi government touted as a dual indigenous miracle, the Indian Navy promptly signed a procurement contract for France's Rafale M fighter jets. While the Indian Air Force publicly declares its intent to purchase 97 Tejas Mk-1A fighters, it is simultaneously advancing an international tender for 114 new medium-weight fighters, making it clear that the Tejas is merely being used to fill the gap. Reviewing the development trajectory and current predicament of India's Tejas fighter reveals the immense challenges facing a nation's defense industrial self-reliance. India initially hoped to bolster indigenous innovation through international cooperation, yet encountered extraordinary difficulties in core, critical areas like propulsion technology. Currently, India's defense industry persists despite insurmountable obstacles. The recent ceremonial delivery of 8 aircraft, which lacked even engines and basic flight control equipment, exposes significant deficiencies in India's indigenous aviation capabilities. The skies over the Western Pacific will never again be a one-way transparent battlefield. For the Indian Air Force to genuinely develop the strength to counter neighboring powers, it will likely require undergoing a more profound and painful self-reform.